And maybe it's something you can highlight in the solution bit up above. That's why UX is so powerful, that it can correct course for businesses and actually make it a success, because businesses, they don't listen to their users enough. And it's your job to make that happen, to advocate for that and propose some proper, meaningful solutions. Hey, what is up? Welcome back, Design Squad, and in this video I'm going to review another portfolio for a UX designer from Bulgaria named Peter. And he, as you can see immediately on my screen, has over 5 years of experience helping businesses grow and impacting users' behavior in a positive way, which is a great intro. But what attracted my eye and was very interesting to me personally was that he's focusing on enterprise software as a service tools. It's almost like a lot of designers kind of steer away from enterprise tools, but in reality those case studies are complex. They require very mature take, requires you to simplify super complex bits. If you as a designer can get some enterprise case studies done, and you're gonna be much more wanted because it's gonna showcase that you're capable to do that as well. And as you can see, it's a simple introduction about his passion, skills, some links, how he got started, what he's been working on, what he's curious about, so simple messages. Another bit about his portfolio, which I think is really good, is that he separated his key work, what he wants to do, from the visual capability. And that's what, a lot of product designers kind of tend to forget, that what you put on your portfolio is what you want to get in your next job, what you want to get more of, what you want to do, going forward. He's saying, hey, I'm doing all this UI UX work, but alongside I'm also capable to do with branding, illustration, things of that nature, which is almost like an add-on. He doesn't put it like one of the things he must be doing in the next job. So to me, immediately I would be like, yes, great, you come from that visual background, you are capable to do that. That's great. That's an extra point, but it's not a focus. What's worth noting that he also lists some brands he designed for before. Just be sure that you're not breaking any NDAs, but it's a good idea to do so. Mentioning that you work for Unilever, even if you cannot put a case study or tell what you did, could be one of the solutions how you build up yourself as a designer, because you can mention that. It almost works like a minimal resume, for lack of a better term. Quite cheap points, but they work. And then a call to action, basically a simple one, just to link into a form where you can contact him, talk to him, and so forth. But the key focus is still his work and case study. So let's jump right into it. And as you can see, this is a developer portal redesign where he helped research and improve the UX UI design, and then he showcases how it looked like. It looks very clean, simple. One thing what I would probably rename is the developer portal redesign sounds quiet, boring. You could spice it up, maybe describing the experience rather than the end solution. If you say, oh, I just designed this app, what did that app mean to the users? Is it a way for them to unlock some resources? Is it a faster way for them to accomplish a goal? You could kind of play with that. It's not just another tool you design, basically. Otherwise, you describe your contribution, like exactly what he did on a high level, tools he used, the team, and he gives credit to those engineers and principals, duration of a project, and he introduces it quite interestingly, basically stating that the users are the decision makers for the tools, especially when it comes to developer tools. So immediately he says that it's really important to listen to them. I would really call that out even more boldly, saying that really the business follows the user needs, and they would listen to the users. If the users just don't like from a get-go what they see or how they interact with a tool, they're gonna just say no, and there is no gonna be any deal. So that could be called out even more so. He also combines the problem with user problems, with the difficulties they face with accessing information and resources, together with low traffic and negative feedback as well. So it's business problems plus the existing users. I would even maybe draw down even deeper with that low traffic and negative feedback. You could add some, specifics, like what's the bottom line, what's the cost, just roughly speaking. And then on a high note, he described the solution itself. It's quite wordy. I would probably, it's great that he kept the bullet points, but I would probably just make it a bit more visual separation. So maybe you have an icon for users, an icon for business, and it's subjective, of course. Like, I don't want to spend an extra 2 minutes reading this this, I could just at a glimpse understand and observe as a hiring manager, because again, I have only a few minutes and I would rather focus that on all the other deliverables you did or why you did what you did instead of that introduction text. And then he described his approach, which is great, some key milestones and key activities he did in discovery, definition, ideation, and testing. He describes the discovery, and this is really interesting because where he says who are the users, he's stating that this is what business presumed. And so Peter, I think you can make it a bit more obvious that hey, you had some presumptions from a business side, what they thought the users are and who did you arrive with, because I've seen before that you did some interviews and then you arrived at some actual personas and the actual experiences they go through the experience mapping effort, which is grand. But you can just make it a bit more obvious and succinct that hey, the business was just not right because they thought XYZ, but the actual outcomes were quite different. And maybe it's something you can highlight in the solution bit up above. That's why UX is so powerful, that it can correct course for businesses and actually make it a success, because businesses, they don't listen to their users enough. And it's your job to make that happen, to advocate for that and propose some proper, meaningful solutions. But obviously, you went through quantitative data, which is great. You showcase some of those examples, some of that data, low traffic, limited visits, ignored content. You did some content audit, which is, I guess, you tried to evaluate and apply some sort of systems thinking, information architecture, did some interviews, so qualitative side, competitor research. But this is where I would kind of question that, how did you accumulate that knowledge? I know why you did the interviews, but show me why and what did you want to address with those interviews? Because, things like who are the user types, you could literally make it glaring that there was something missing, let's say, and that's why you wanted to talk to your users to capture behavior and attitudinal data in qualitative side, right? And then you go into definition, and this is where a question, because your personas, your experience map of as-is experiences could be part of a discovery, even if you technically defined something, but this is really part of the research. It's really part of all those discovery efforts you're doing. It's good that on a high level you captured the phases we go through, the actions we take, the whys, the pain points, the opportunities. So it's clear to me that you know what you're doing, and it's structured approach where you try to evaluate existing experience before jumping into ideas and conclusions. You did some how might we exercises, trying to address the key pain point areas, ideated on potential solutions, user flows, sitemap, hand sketches. You'd highlight exactly what benefit each of the components bring. Maybe there's some other bits you could explore of how did you translate those ideas into this, make it a bit more glaring, let's say. As a hiring manager, I would question how did you translate those specific snippets into the features. That always comes up, by the way. It doesn't matter what level you are as a designer, there are always going to be questions of how did you arrive at a specific idea or specific feature set. You can visually link the two bits, like the issue and the idea, and also talk about prioritization efforts, but you can also talk about the actual ways of working. Where you're running workshops, maybe showcase some of those workshop photos or deliver, all that cheap points of a visually enhancing the story you're telling. And then you finish the thing, you showcase some visual outcomes, you tested it out with usability tests. This is where it might be a bit too succinct. You might want to expand it. For example, if you're saying that there are 3 to 5 participants and you're being specific, maybe showcase some of the patterns, maybe visually present that, hey, this didn't work. So this is before and this is the after, side by side, and literally show what changed. That works very, very well. And then you go into lessons learned, and then you say that user journeys and user interviews was a real game changer because you understood motivations, mental models of users, X, Y, Z. And this is exactly why you should do experience mapping. It's bread and butter for UX. And if you don't jump into conclusions way too soon. I'll tell you that. And maybe 80% of what you do is actually good enough, but that 20% of a deep, deep rooted understanding of the users might not be. So every designer who's watching this, make sure you implement some of these bits, what Peter is doing here. And what I would want to see as well is like what happened next. or what were the projected outcomes for the business. So for example, things like negative feedback you highlighted from a business side, or the low engagement, I think it was, or low visits, low usage. Did that improve? Was it projected that it would improve because you did the user testing? You could literally reflect on that, because ultimately you're talking about UX outcomes. But if you can also bring some business outcomes, you're gonna unlock even more pathways. As a hiring manager, as a UXer, I would be like, yeah, this is good enough for me to talk to you. But if someone comes from non-UX background and you're maybe want to interview for contract and you applied for software house who you're gonna be the only designer joining, they would want to also know the business outcomes. And it always helps that, because it shows your maturity as a designer, and it shows that you have a good understanding how to drive value for the business, because that's why they're gonna bring you in to begin with. For everyone who's watching, and majority of you are not subscribed, I can see the data, by the way, so make sure to smash that subscription button. Give a like if you liked it, leave a comment down below if you learned anything from it, and on that note, I'll see you next time.